Are you my master? Alien girls whisper sparks forbidden romance with human soldier asterisk. She invaded Earth's orbit to prepare it for conquest. But he made her feel something her species never prepared her for. ... Love. High above the blue. Planet Commander Vera of the Arakan Dominion sat in silence aboard her sleek black warcraft, scanning Earth's defense grids. Her orders were clear. Study the species, identify their weaknesses, and prepare for subjugation. The Dominion had conquered 12 worlds this cycle. Earth was just the next. Virea was not built for emotion. Like all Arakan, she had been grown, trained and shaped into a weapon. Her mind was a network of calculations and probabilities. Her heart, if it could be called that, was silent, loyal to the Dominion. Then her long-range sensor picked up something strange. A human signal, weak, unencrypted, and completely ... illogical. She almost dismissed it, a curiosity, a rare and dangerous trait among her kind. Made her listen. It was music, soft, sad, a lone male voice, singing to no one and everyone. She didn't understand the words, something about loss, hope, waiting, but the feeling it cut through her like a precision blade. For the first time, the cold inside her chest cracked. Instead of marking the source for orbital strike, she changed course. She landed her scout pod in the woods outside the human signal's origin, an isolated cabin deep in the northern forests. Her cloaking systems masked her presence. Still, she felt exposed, stepping onto Earth's surface. It was warmer than she expected, and ... quieter. She found him sitting on the porch, human male, early 40s by Arakan estimation, broad-shouldered. Weather-worn, not a soldier, not a threat. He was strumming a stringed instrument, lost in his song. The same one from the signal. He looked up, startled, but not afraid. "You're not from around here," he said, setting the instrument down slowly. Virea didn't respond. She didn't have a line prepared. She hadn't expected to meet anyone. Certainly not like this. She scanned his face. His eyes held no fear, only curiosity that made her uneasy. Most species drop to their knees at the sight of an Arakan in full command suit, but he didn't. He offered her ... tea. "You look cold," he said. She wasn't. Her suit regulated internal heat perfectly. But something in her, something she couldn't explain, wanted to accept. So she nodded. Inside, the cabin was simple. Old wood, low light, and smells she'd never encountered. Smoke, herbs, and something sweet. He poured her a mug and sat down opposite her. "My name's Eli," he said. She hesitated. No mission protocol covered this. Finally, she said, "Virea, Commander, Arakan, Dominion." "You are ... Not what I expected." Eli smiled. "Neither are you." She should have vaporized him for that, but instead, she tilted her head. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward, his voice lower now. "You're not just here to talk, are you? You're scouting. Maybe for war. That was a recon craft you landed in the forest. Light distortion field, short-range hover. No exhaust signature." Her hand twitched near her sidearm. "You recognized Arakan tech?" "No," he said. "I just pay attention." She stared at him, searching for the lie. But there was none, just that calm gaze. "I should erase your memory," she said. "But you won't." He was right, and that confused her more than anything. Over the next hours, she lost track of time. They spoke, not about politics or invasion plans, about music, about the sky, about why he lived out here alone. She asked him why he sang. "Because sometimes," he said, "you need to let the feeling out or it crushes you." "Feeling is weakness," she said automatically. He laughed softly. "No, Vera. Feeling is being alive." The words stuck in her mind like a data spike. She didn't respond, but her fingers brushed the mug he gave her, still warm. She liked the heat, the quiet. The way he looked at her without fear or demand. When she stood to leave, he didn't stop her. "You'll do what you're meant to," he said. "Just don't forget this." She returned to orbit, back to the cold blackness of space. But something had changed. She replayed the music. The warmth of the cabin, his voice, his eyes. He wasn't the strongest soldier she'd seen, but he made her heart malfunction. And now when she looked down at Earth, it wasn't just a target. Anymore, it was his home, and maybe, if she let herself feel again, it could be hers too. Asterisk back aboard her orbital scout ship, Vera sat in silence. The stars stretched across her view screen in cold perfection. Dozens of blinking symbols danced. Across her heads-up display, planetary shield analysis, human communication logs, atmospheric shifts. All important, all routine, but her eyes didn't focus on any of it. They kept drifting back to Earth, to that cabin. To him, his voice was still in her mind. Not because she allowed it, but because something inside her refused to let it go. She could still smell the smoke from his hearth, still feel the strange warmth of the mug in her hands. Still hear his laugh when she said feelings were weakness. She should have reported him. He knew too much. He'd seen her face, her ship, her tech. He knew she wasn't human. That was enough to mark him for deletion. But when she reached for the comms panel to upload her mission log, her hand paused in the air, hovered, and slowly dropped. Instead, she opened the musical file he'd broadcast. The song. She played it again. It was in a language she didn't speak, but she understood it anyway. Longing, regret, hope. These were not Arakian things. Her people were bred for command and conquest. They did not hope. They took, and yet, as the melody spilled into the quiet hum of the cockpit, Vera felt something stir. Not orders, not instinct. Something older. Something hers. The next night, she returned. She didn't ask permission. Didn't file coordinates. She landed in the same clearing as before, cloaking engaged, system silent, and this time was waiting. Eli stood on the porch, arms crossed, a second mug already in his hand. "I figured you'd come back," he said. "I shouldn't have," she replied. "Then why did you?" She didn't answer because she didn't know. She could lie, say it was surveillance, say she needed intel, say she was verifying a cultural anomaly, but that would be a lie. Instead, she walked up the steps and took the mug inside. The fire crackled, and so did something between them. He asked her about her world. She told him metallic skies, endless fields of ice glass, cities carved into mountains by heat cutters, efficient, cold, lifeless, no music. He asked. "No feeling," she replied. "That sounds like a terrible place to fall in love." She blinked. "Arakan don't fall." "Or love, maybe," he said, leaning in. "You're just overdue." She should have been insulted, or at least confused. Instead, she laughed. For the first time in her life, a short, strange sound that startled even her. Eli's grin widened. "That's better. Almost human." She tilted her head. "You think I want to be human?" "No," he said softly. "I think you're more than what they made you." His words hit her harder than any laser round she'd ever taken in training. More than what they made her that night. They sat closer than before. She didn't touch him, but she thought about it, about what it would feel like. Warm, solid, real. Her people shared knowledge through thought streams, efficient, clinical, direct. But here, with Eli, silence said more than data ever could. She left just before sunrise, before anyone noticed her ship missing, but she came back the next night. Each time it got harder to leave, she started noticing details. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, it's a scar on his collarbone. The way he always offered her the first sip of tea, even though she didn't need it. The way his fingers danced across the strings of that old guitar like they remembered every sad song the stars had ever heard. And she began to wonder if she'd been born on this world. Would she have been like him? Would she have laughed more? Fought less? Felt more? One night, as a snowstorm howled outside, she stayed longer than usual. The fire had burned low. The lights had dimmed. She stood by the window, eyes scanning the white outside. "Mind spinning. You're not just observing anymore, are you?" Eli asked quietly from behind her. She didn't turn around. "No," she admitted, "and that terrifies me." He stood, across the room. Slowly, gently, he placed a hand over hers. Her skin, though cooler than his, hummed at the contact. "Virea," he said, his voice steady. "Whatever you're feeling, you don't have to hide it." "I don't know what it is," she whispered. "That's okay," he said. "Feel it anyway." She looked at him then, really looked. The lines on his face, the strength in his eyes. It's the kindness he never used as a weapon. She touched his face. Not with orders, not with duty, but with something fragile and dangerous, emotion, connection, and something even scarier. Trust in that quiet little cabin, with nothing but snow and silence outside. Varia, commander of the Arikan, took her first step away from conquest, and into something no training simulation had ever prepared her for. Something terrifying, something wonderful. She stepped into him, and suddenly, Earth didn't feel like a mission anymore. It felt like home. Asterisk. Right. Vera should have stayed away. She had already crossed a line. Arikan commanders did not revisit planets without orders. They didn't return to the same location multiple times. They definitely didn't spend 3 nights in a row with a human civilian beside a fireplace, but she did. Again and again. And somewhere between the 3rd cup of tea and the 7th slow song on Eli's battered guitar, she stopped lying to herself. This wasn't reconnaissance anymore. It was something else. Something unsanctioned, unexplored, unforgivable. The bond forming between them wasn't just emotional. It was physical, real, biological. Arikan weren't supposed to react to human pheromones. She did. They weren't supposed to feel tension when close to a human male. She felt it constantly, tightly coiled behind her spine every time. Eli leaned too close to hand her something or brush her arm by accident. By accident. The 4th night, something changed. They sat in silence, watching a storm through the window. Thunder rolled like a voice from the stars, and rain battered the cabin roof in sheets. Vera stood up slowly, crossed the floor, and placed her hand on Eli's chest. No tech, no mind link, just skin on fabric. Her pulse thrummed in her ears. "Your body is loud," she whispered. He chuckled. "That a compliment?" "I don't know," she said, studying him. "I just feel drawn. Like your presence pulls gravity." His voice lowered. "Maybe I'm just as lost in yours." That night she didn't leave. She stayed. Nothing happened. Not like that. They lay side by side on the old couch. No armor, no uniforms. Just warmth, breath, and silence. And when she closed her eyes, she dreamed for the first time in her life of a planet she didn't want to conquer, of a man she didn't want to leave, but the universe was watching. Back in orbit, her command ship pinged. A long-range transmission from Arakian High Command, encrypted top-dash priority. It read, "Commander Virea, unusual behavior detected. You were ordered to return to capital ship Talon's Wrath for debriefing. Immediately, known compliance will be interpreted as corruption." She read it twice. Then again, still her hands didn't move. She looked down at the planet again. Earth glowed softly beneath her. Innocent, defiant, and somewhere down there, he was waiting. She knew what corruption meant. They'd call it an emotional breach. Claim the human had influenced her mind, declare her compromised. They would erase her memories, reprogram her. If she returned, she'd forget Eli ever existed. But the warmth he gave her couldn't be erased, neither could the ache in her chest. She slammed her fist against the console. The ship lights flickered, her breathing quickened. This was madness. She was bred for discipline, perfection, obedience. But all she wanted was to hear his voice again. And so, she made a choice. Not with logic, with feeling. She keyed in a false trajectory report and rerouted. Her scout ship too low orbit, an unsanctioned return. The Dominion would track her in minutes. She didn't care. She needed to see him one more time. Even if it was the last. She cloaked the craft and landed behind the cabin. Rain had stopped. Moonlight spilled across the wet grass. She approached the porch. The door opened before she could knock. He stood there. No surprise on his face. Just the kind of look a man gave when he knew what her eyes already said. "You're not staying long. This time, are you?" he said quietly. She shook her head. They know. He didn't ask who, didn't need to. Instead, he reached for her hand, held it like something precious. It's not fragile, important. "Are you in danger?" "Only if I go back," she said. "Then don't." "I can't stay. They'll come, they'll find me, and they'll find you." "Let them," he said, but she could see the pain in his eyes, the helplessness, the wanting. Not lust, not desperation, just love, the kind that hurt. "I don't want you erased," he said. "I don't want you rewritten into something that doesn't remember this US." She stepped closer. "If they find me," she whispered, "promise you'll run, please." "I won't run from you." "No," she said, placing her hand on his chest again. "Run for me. Stay alive. It's that something in this universe remembers what we were." They stood like that for what felt like forever. Then slowly, deliberately, he pulled her into a kiss. It was soft, unhurried, no hunger, just depth, heat, truth. And in that kiss, she tasted something she'd never known before. Home, when they pulled apart. He touched her cheek gently. "Whatever happens," he said, "you changed me." Her voice cracked. "And you made me real." Behind them, a high-pitched hum broke the silence. She turned sharply. Arakeen probes, 4 of them, low-flying, scanning, tracking. Time had run out. She stepped back. Her ship's beacon blinked red on her gauntlet. They'd traced her signal. She had minutes. Maybe less. He didn't move to stop her. Instead, Christ. He pressed a data crystal into her palm. "I don't have much tech," he said, "but this has every song I ever recorded, even the bad ones." She closed her fingers around it like it was oxygen. Then, she stepped away at the edge of the forest. She turned one last time. He raised his hand in a simple human gesture. "Goodbye." She said nothing, just nodded and vanished into the dark. Her ship lifted silently into the clouds, but this time, when she looked down, she wasn't looking at a mission. She was looking at her reason, and in her chest, where there had only ever been strategy and silence, something human burned. She would fight for it. She didn't care what the Dominion said, because she wasn't just a commander. Anymore, she was a woman in love, and for the first time in her life, she was ready to rebel. Asterisk, the moment Vera broke orbit, she felt the Dominion's eyes on her. She'd barely cleared Earth's atmospheric veil before to sleek black. The interceptors locked onto her trajectory, silent, efficient, unforgiving. Her own people, and they didn't hail her with questions. They fired. Red plasma bursts ripped across space, grazing her left wing and forcing her scout ship into a downward spiral. The vessel bucked beneath her. Warning lights screamed. Hull integrity dropped to 42%. Her fingers flew across the controls. Evasive. Automatically. Deploy flare countermeasures. Cut transponder, but it wasn't enough. One more hit, and she wouldn't live long enough to regret disobedience. That's when instinct kicked in. Not a Raken protocol, not Dominion training, but something human. Something Eli had taught her. Survive first. Plan second. And never give up. She rerouted power to the rear shields and dove into Earth's shadow, using the curvature of the planet to blind her attacker's sensors, a risky move. One miscalculation, and she'd crash into the atmosphere like a flaming myth, but luck, something she'd never believed in, was. On her side, the interceptors lost her trail. She limped her ship into the asteroid belt beyond Mars and parked it inside the magnetic field of a frozen rock, cloaked, bleeding. Fuel. Systems flickering, but alive for now. Inside the dim cockpit, Bria exhaled slowly. She reached for the data crystal Ely had given her. Small, simple, ancient by Dominion tech standards. But when she plugged it into the console, his voice came through, clear as if he were sitting beside her. "You said you didn't know what love was," his voice said, soft in the speakers. "So I left you something to remember what it sounds like." The first track played, his music, rough, human, full of warmth. It made her eyes sting. She hadn't cried. In her life, Arakeen didn't cry. Their ducts were designed for oxygen regulation, not emotional displays. But something shifted inside her. Something that couldn't be measured by code. She wasn't just running from the Dominion now. She was running toward something. Toward him. She opened a secure comms channel illegal. Old encrypted using outdated Terran satellites no longer monitored. By any major authority, it took 5 minutes for the signal to bounce back to Earth. Then another 30 before she heard his voice again. Virea. Eli's voice came through, distorted but clear. She closed her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "You're alive. Barely, they're hunting me. Then we need to bring you home." She almost laughed. "Home? Yo. You said you didn't have one. So let's make one." She paused. His words hit harder than enemy fire. "I can't come back yet," she said. "They're tracking me. If I lead them to you, then don't come to me," he said. "Let me come to you. You're a human. I'll kill you on sight. I've got 2 hands, a stubborn streak, and an old ship I haven't flown in years," he replied. "And if I can't fly, I'll crawl. But I'm not letting you fight this alone." Silence. She couldn't speak. The connection cut out just. As the first chord of another song played, it was the one he sang the first night she found him, the one that made her heart malfunction. But now, it beat with purpose. Virea patched her systems as best she could, recharged her fuel cell from asteroid thermal vents, activated old black market cloaking mods she'd seized from a pirate ship a decade ago. Every choice she'd ever made every cold. Calculate a move, as a commander was now keeping her alive, but it was love that gave her reason to keep going. 3 days later, coded transmission came through. Coordinates, unknown sector. Unregistered zone. Attached was a single message. "You once told me you were grown for war. Let's see if you can grow for something else." Ishi smiled. Not a tactical smile. Not a war smile, a real one. Then she keyed in the coordinates. Her fingers trembled. Not from fear, from hope. The coordinates led to the edge of a dead star system. A hollow, forgotten stretch of space where no Dominion ships patrolled, and no sentient eyes bothered to look. But there was life. A hidden dockyard ancient. Terran architecture, held together with rust and grit and stubborn engineering. The kind of place that shouldn't exist anymore. But Eli had found it, and waiting at the docking bay was his ship. It was an old cargo hauler, barely holding together, painted with earth blues and grays. But it was real. It was his. It had come for her as her scout ship docked with a groan of metal and static. She felt her breath catch. The airlock cycled. The door opened, and there he was. Wearing a patched flight jacket, smudged with grease, a grin on his face, and a pistol strapped to his hip like he knew it wouldn't help, but planned to fight anyway. "You look terrible," he said. "You look worse." They stared at each other for a second too long, then she stepped forward. Fast, fierce, and kissed. It wasn't gentle this time. It was homecoming. When they broke apart, his hand stayed on her waist. "You ready to run?" he asked. "No," she said, eyes glowing. Faintly, "I'm ready to fight." They weren't safe. Not yet, but now they were together, and for the first time in the galaxy's long, brutal history. An Iraqian commander and a human civilian had become something no war ever planned for. Allies, lovers, and soon ... rebels. Asterisk, the ship was old, loud, smelled like rust and burnt coffee, but to Virea, it was the most peaceful vessel she'd ever set foot on. Eli's cargo hauler drifted quietly within the pocket of dead. Space he'd found an old fuel depot hollowed out and forgotten by the last. Terran trade fleet over 2 decades ago. There were no Dominion sensors here. No eyes. No duty. Only silence. And him. Viria stood by the viewport, arms folded, her reflection staring back at her in the glass. She had removed her command armor for the first time in months. Underneath, she wore a simple black underlayer, form-fitting and functional designed. For zero-G combat, not comfort. And yet, she had never felt so exposed. Eli stepped behind her, holding a steaming mug. Still like tea? She took it without a word, sipped, frowned. This one tastes like tree bark. He laughed. That's because it is tree bark. Terran pine root. Filtered through a sock, actually, she blinked. A sock? Desperate. Times he grinned. Don't judge my methods. I'm judging your species. And yet, he said, stepping closer, you came back. I didn't have a choice, she said softly. He studied her, but this, he gestured to. Their closeness, their presence on this forgotten ship. This wasn't a mission. You made a choice, Viria. She didn't reply. Instead, she looked back out the window. Stars blinked in the dark like distant eyes. She imagined the Dominion out there, searching for her, marking her as a traitor, planning her erasure. And yet, all she could feel was him behind her, warm, still waiting. Eli, she said finally, I don't know how to be anything other than what they made me. You're already more than that, he said. Seen it. You've seen. The part that's still learning how to ... feel. And let's keep learning. Together. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Her fingers, trained for trigger pressure and neural pad manipulation, now curled gently around his. Come here, he said. He led her to the small sleeping cabin. It was barely wide enough for the two of them. Caught with frayed thermal blankets, faded photograph of Earth taped to the Walsum lake he'd grown up near, long since dried. She sat slowly. Looked at him. I don't know what you expect, she said. I don't expect anything, he replied. But if you want something, I'm here. She stared at him for a long moment, then reached up and touched his face, her hand light. Deliberate? You are different, she whispered, from everything I was told, from everything I studied. Is that good? I haven't decided, he smiled. Then let me give you more data. Their kiss was slower this time. Desperate. Not stolen in the middle of a firefight, but intentional. Soft. Full of unspoken permission. He laid her back gently. She didn't flinch, and when their bodies pressed together, bare skin to bare skin, she didn't think about protocol, or posture, or duty. She thought about him, the warmth, the smell, the sound of his breath catching as her fingers explored. His chest like she was mapping unknown terrain, he traced the faint glow lines on her back. Running from the base of her neck to her lower spine, Arakan bioluminal markers normally hidden, normally cold, but now they pulsed. Dimly, blue, and violet. Is that supposed to happen? He asked. No, she said, her voice low. It never has before. And then she smiled, truly, completely. When their bodies joined, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't planned. It wasn't anything the Dominion would call efficient mating protocol. But it was real. They moved like two planets finding each other. After years of orbiting alone, no orders, no chains, just choice. Later, wrapped in the same old blanket, Viria rested her head on his shoulder. Her breathing had slowed, her mind had stilled. For the first time since her creation, she felt peace. I think I'm broken, she said softly. Eli turned his head. Why? Because when you held me, ... I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to fight. I just ... wanted to stay here, with you like this. Kissed the top of her head. That's not broken, he said. That's what being human feels like. She closed her eyes. I could get used to it. Might have to, he said. Voice playful, but edged with reality, because we're going to need to disappear. The Dominion won't stop hunting you. They'll track old signals. Cross-reference known associates. Your command clearance won't mean anything now. No, she whispered. They'll classify me as a defector. They'll erase my entire record. Then we start writing a new one. She lifted her head. What do you mean? I've been thinking, Eli said, sitting up slightly. We don't just run, hit back. Not with weapons, with truth. She frowned. Truth doesn't destroy battleships. No, he said, but it infects systems, like code, like memory. He tapped his wristband. I'd been compiling something. Every intercepted broadcast, every Dominion lie, every protocol I could dig up from their old files. And now that, I have everything we need to expose them. Vera stared at him. You wanna ... leak the truth? He nodded. To every neutral world, every black market node, every sympathetic system the Dominion hasn't crushed. Let them see what you really are. A traitor? No, a person. She said nothing. Then, after a long pause, she asked, and after that? He smiled. Then we vanish. Start somewhere new. Grow roots and maybe ... one day. Raise something. That doesn't have to fight for air. Her eyes flickered. You're talking about ... a child. I'm talking about us. About building something instead of destroying. She didn't speak, but her fingers slowly moved to her abdomen. Irakene biology didn't allow random gestation. It was intentional, controlled. But her body had already changed since touching him. She could feel it. It was impossible, and yet she looked at him, if that ever happens. She said slowly, "What would we call it?" He blinked. What? The child? What would we name them? He laughed. We're already naming hypothetical babies now. She smiled faintly. I like to prepare. Well, if it's a girl, maybe something strong, like Myra. Nodded. That's a star. If it's a boy, he added, we'll name him Trouble. She laughed. A real, belly-shaking, unguarded laugh. Then she leaned in. Kissed him again this time. Not because they were running, but because they had something worth running for. Asterisk, the leak had to be perfect. One corrupted packet. One mistimed relay, and the Dominion wouldn't just trace the signal, they'd strike. Fast. Lethal. Final. They would obliterate every node, every witness, every whisper. That included Eli, and that Viraya decided was unacceptable. She sat in the co-pilot chair of his creaking hauler, wearing a patched flight jacket over her Irakene bodysuit. Her long white hair was tied back, and her eyes burned with purpose. On the console in front of her was a glowing crystal. The data key. Everything was on it. Every war crime buried in her. People's archives. Every transmission she was never supposed to hear. Every order she was once proud to follow. And Eli. Taryn, who somehow made her forget her own name when he kissed her, was the one who convinced her that truth mattered more than command. She looked over at him now. Sitting with one leg propped on the dash, chewing a ration stick like it was fine. Cuisine. His jaw was stubbled, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. But he smiled like a man who believed in miracles. How's the broadcast matrix holding? She asked. He tapped the side of his console, holding together with duct tape, leftover chewing gum, and one fried capacitor. So, ... Standard Terran excellence. She gave him a flat look. He grinned. It'll work. Trust me. I do, she said softly, and meant it. That was the terrifying part. She used to trust algorithms, predictive combat models, chain of command certainties. Now, she trusted him. Their plan was simple, stupidly so. They would hijack the Dominion's own signal net, a suicide move, but also, ironically, the safest one, because the Dominion's central hub, called the Crown, was so heavily firewalled that no one ever bothered to attack it directly. Too risky, too protected, which made it the perfect place to sneak in. You ready to plug in the soul of the rebellion? Eli asked. She held up the crystal. Ready? Flipped a few switches, and the ship trembled as it activated its final. Flight mode, the old hauler barely spaceworthy, was about to become a bomb of information. They dropped out of stealth right above the Crown. It was massive, a station the size of a small moon, spinning slowly in the black like a predator with its jaws open. Silver spikes jutted from its hull. Anti-ship cannons bristled from its sides. It was beautiful and monstrous, like Vera used to be. Initiating breach, Eli said. They dove into the blind spot. Asterisk. The ship's makeshift cloaking fluttered, flickered, fell just long enough to make them look like debris. By the time the station's scanners registered their presence, it was too late. Virea plugged in the data key. Broadcasting now, she whispered. The ship's console lit up like a sunburst. Her voice, her actual voice, began. Streaming across hundreds of Dominion frequencies, she told the truth. Of the breeding camps. Of the mind-conditioning. Of the enslaved worlds dressed up as Annex partners. Of her own sins, I was their commander, she said. And I believed I was righteous. I believed in obedience. But then, I met a man who made me feel something I wasn't supposed to feel. He didn't conquer me. He saw me. And in that moment, I became more than a soldier. I became a person. Eli watched her as she spoke, not as a traitor. Not even as a warrior. But as the woman he loved. He reached out and squeezed her hand. The data spread like fire. 100 nodes, 1,000 ears. It worked until the Dominion fired. A blast rocked the ship. Alarm screamed. Shield arrays dead. Eli yelled. Engines failing. Then we jump, Brea said. She hit the emergency beacon. The crystal, her confession, her hope was gone. Dispersed across the galaxy, now they just had to survive. They plunged the ship into the nearest star corridor, an unstable tunnel of light, and physics barely mapped. The ship groaned. Metal. Screamed. They held onto each other like it was the only thing keeping them alive. And maybe it was when they woke. The ship was dead. Floating systems offline. They were alive, barely strapped into emergency harnesses in the dark, recycled by one backup battery. Varea's hand found Eli's still warm. He coughed. We make it. She listened. Static. Then, ... A ping. 1. Then 2. Then hundreds. The data had reached the colonies. The truth was out. She laughed. He groaned. What's funny? We did it, she whispered. Then softly, you did it. Looked over at her still. Bruised and smiling. Think they'll write stories about us? Only if we survive long enough to have children who exaggerate everything, he laughed. So... We better get started, huh? She blushed, tactfully blushed. Perhaps once we find somewhere safe. He reached up and brushed her hair back. Don't care if it's a rock orbiting a rock, he said. If you're there, it's home. She leaned in and kissed him, gentle, slow. I think, she whispered, I want a quiet life. He smiled. We'll build it together. In the dark of a crippled ship, spinning slowly toward nowhere. They had no weapons, no army, no home. But they had each other, and now the galaxy had heard them. Asterisk 2 months later. The war hadn't ended, not officially. The Dominion still spun its propaganda across the core systems. Still painted her a defector. Still put a bounty on Eli's head so large that pirates joked about cloning him just to turn him in twice. But something had changed. People had started asking. Questions. Old allies had gone quiet. Neutral systems refused to answer Dominion pings. And in the outer colonies, the places where Dominion eyes rarely looked, Vira's voice still echoed her confession, her defiance, her choice. And that choice had become contagious. Across mining, moons, and salvage worlds, resistance sparked, not loud, not fast, but real. And somewhere in the deep belt of the Solara fringe, far beyond any Dominion patrol route, a small green world turned slowly under a gentle yellow sun. No name, no flags, just soil, sky, and peace. And on the edge of a warm field, nestled beneath a hill of violet-leafed trees, stood a cabin, built by hand, board by board, by two people who had once met as enemy and anomaly, and who now called each other home. Eli adjusted the solar panel mount, sweat on his brow, his shirt half-buttoned and stained with wood sap. He looked every bit the war hero no one remembered, and the farmer no one expected. Vera stepped onto the porch, holding a mug of tea, real tea this time, no socks involved. Her stomach was slightly rounded now beneath her soft linen wrap, subtle but unmistakable. She watched him for a moment, how he moved, how he talked to the soil like it was an old friend, how he had once faced down her entire empire with nothing but a grin and a guitar, and still, somehow he made her feel safe. "I told you," he said without looking up. "The west panel was too exposed. Storm's gonna rip it right off." Said that about the last 3 storms. Proved me right 3 times. "Then let's hope it's only mostly destroyed this time," she said, setting down his tea on the workbench. He looked up, smiling. He walked over, kissed her gently, then reached for the mug. She rested a hand on his chest. "You didn't sleep again last night," she said. "Couldn't?" he replied. "Had a weird dream? About them finding us?" "No." He looked out toward the horizon. Pout. "Our kid, he or she, was running through that field, barefoot. Laughing." She smiled, eyes soft. "Arakan children don't usually laugh." "Then we'll break the trend." They stood there for a long moment, watching the clouds roll in from the hills. Then a chirp came from inside the cabin. Vera turned, alarm prickling. Eli tensed too. She stepped in quickly, scanning the small receiver unit on the far wall. The signal was weak. Coded then, it blinked green. "We heard her. We believe her. We're coming." Below the message, coordinates. Eli leaned against the doorway. "Looks like we're not alone anymore." She nodded, eyes scanning the map. "They're from the Varn system. Trade fleets. Medical stations. Probably defectors?" He grinned. "So, we're becoming a movement now." "No," she said. "We're becoming a family." He looked over at her. The meaning behind her words wasn't lost on him. This wasn't just about rebellion anymore. It was about legacy, a new life. A better one. Not ruled by domination or fear or protocols, but by choice. Connection, love, that night. After the wind died down and the stars returned to the sky, they sat together on the porch, wrapped in a single blanket, her head on his shoulder, his hand resting gently over her stomach. No weapons, no armor, just them. "You think they'll ever stop chasing us?" Eli asked. "They might, and if they don't, then we teach our child how to run fast and shoot straight." He chuckled. "You're going to be a great mother, you know." She looked up at him. "I had no model," she said. "You made your own." She smiled. And for the first time, she didn't feel like a defector, or a soldier, or even a fugitive. She felt like a woman who had claimed her freedom and built a future with her own hands, one that now grew inside her. "Tell me again," she said softly. "Why you saved me." He kissed her forehead. "Because when I looked at you, I didn't see a threat." "What did you see?" "Saw someone worth saving." She didn't cry, but she did hold him tighter. And beneath the stars, the two of them, human and Arakan, watched their world sleep in peace. No alarms, no patrols, no orders, just love and the quiet. Powerful hope that what they had built might outlive the war that tried to break them. Because in the end, first contact wasn't a battle, it was a beginning, and this was there forever, the end.